But one of the very important ones, of course, is the performance management. But even here, the hull, you say, well, the ship is constructed with the hull it has. We have made business cases where it can be a very good business to maybe exchange the bulbous bow and the propeller. If the ship, for instance, is built for 26 knots, that's the optimum point, is the design for, and in reality, it operates at 14 knots and at a completely different draft, then there may be a good business case in that. But there are a lot of things you can work on in the ship, also on the propulsion machinery and the hull and rudder, as I said before. These are some of the projects that we're working on for our existing fleet. Again, I won't go into detail with each and every one, but an interesting one is this one. We contracted a little tip propeller. We have the bended propeller, like you see on the airplane wings today. Very promising. We're testing biofuels on a container ship here, Kalmar Maersk. Works. Unfortunately, biofuel is very expensive these days, but technically it works. Air lubrication, very interesting project. I mean, if you have a CLT propeller and you have a Navy stock and a comes with a rotating propeller, they may just not work together. There may not be 5% from each of them, so there's a challenge there. If you look at the new builds, there are a number of things you can look at now already, take into consideration when you design the ship. And of course, we are very much involved in the design from the outset, and we appreciate that a number of owners do not have this influence on ship owners or shipbuilders. But I mean, if we contract 20 ships, for instance, we do have a say on how these ships are designed. And of course, the new ships we're going to have, the EEE, which will be the world's largest container ship, 18,300 TEUs. We looked a lot on the capacity and the economy of scale, which makes a big difference. Look at the hull form, optimize that for the actual condition it will operate in. Engines, there are a number of new engines like the super long stroke and ultra long stroke engines, which offers much better fuel performance. And finally, of course, waste heat recovery. That is installed in all of it. It's also the tankers. These new ships will have a carbon footprint that's 50% less than that of the average ship on the East Asian Europe route for container ships.
Well, quickly, just run straight down the panel. Maybe I could throw this at Martin to start off with. Let's be unfair. The question is a simple one. Could you name the greatest influence, or even mentor, to be slightly more highfalutin about it, from whom you've learned most about the industry and how you've conducted business over the years? And they haven't been involved on this, by the way, so
if I can get it out, I think I would say Cindy Offord. I think he's to me that the Offord Group has a very great capability to be versatile, to keep very good people into the fleets, and also to deal very well with some difficult things that come along in the market. So, but most of all, very professional. It's been very good at that. I've enjoyed watching over the years and how they've dealt with different markets and moved so versatile. They have moved into many different sectors with great success.
For me, I think the biggest influence in the market itself. All our expectations of the market. You talk about black swans, we've seen them all. So I think the market itself has been a great teacher, and we've just had to innovate individually, looking at different opportunities to try to survive that.
There are a number of people that over the years have followed what they have been doing, but I think that the difference was made when I was inspired, and when you are inspired and you can think with a clear mind and you can think aggressively and you can be creative. I think that this has to do with persons that have nothing to do with shipping. Can be when a woman that you can really love, also can be a sunset. inspire me to make the difference. For my team.
I think there's a lot of people that have influenced me over the years, from the education I've taken to a lot of the professionals I've been working with, and of course, inevitably from my father, which was a very knowledgeable person in shipping and has brought it to my DNA somehow.
I've learned from many people over time, but one I would mention is Bill Bose, who used to be my boss in Cairo. He taught me a lot of the trading. What worries me most is that he's left shipping and he's reinvented himself as an inventor, like Mark Martin, in agricultural land in the UK.
Well, I have a shipping background, so I think that Mark Mobius from Templeton was one of the pioneers in asset management in emerging markets. He entered like 25 years ago. He was very niche in his analysis. He analyzes companies in tremendous depth, and he really goes into the psychology of the management as well. So I'm a true follower. But what is inspiring for us is to, and for me again, it's a great honor to participate in this panel, because I'm in between self-made millionaires that started their companies from scratch. People on this panel had the choice to sit and do nothing and just manage the money that their families made already for them. But nevertheless, they continue to work hard. They penetrated the tough capital markets, and they're said to be achieved tremendous things in a very tough environment. So the people on this panel are also very inspiring for us as well.
I think inspiration is a matter of age and where you are in your development process. Before I became a ship owner, I was inspired by the company I worked for, that I managed with management. Thereafter, you look at different groups, different ways. You have the public markets, John Frederick said, you have the private market, Sami Offer, you have the big corporates, AP Moller Maersk. As we move on, I think, you have to decide what hat you put on, the entrepreneur or the investor. The investor, you said Mark Mobius, everybody knows Warren Buffett. But as an entrepreneur and as a person that identified most with his company, the inspiration, the last inspiration has been Steve Jobs.
If I look back, I got to work with a Norwegian named Christian Gerhard. He helps build, among other things, Gearbox. And he worked 7 days a week. He cared about the people that worked for him. He cared about the people on the ships. His word was absolutely worth everything. He believed in building competitive advantage and being careful with the balance sheet. He died typing a telex, typing an email after returning from a business trip when he was in his late 70s, and he left a legacy. And I always thought, if one day I could be a ship owner or a CEO, if I could do it half as well as he did, I'd be pretty happy. And still working towards that.
Okay, thank you all. Now I'd like to invite all of you to the most interesting part of the event, which is food, drinks, and shipping chit-chat outside. Thank you all. A big applause.